Okay, hi everybody. We're going to take a look at some astrotheology today. The astrotheology we're going to take a look at is the winter solstice and its relationship to the primordial being Adam and crucifixion. And we're going to see how these are related. The crucifixion, remember, happens in Golgotha, and Golgotha is the place of the skull, and we're going to see how all this ties together. What I want to do is I want to go over a couple of things first for you to kind of give you a refresher of what we're dealing with when we take a look at the tree of life. So right here it says, and this is from the secret teaching of all ages, this is the Sephiroth tree. The four Kabbalistic trees described in the preceding chapter were combined by later Jewish scholars into one all-inclusive diagram and termed by them not only the Sephirothic but also the archetypal or heavenly Adam. According to some authorities, it is this heavenly Adam, and not a terrestrial man, whose creation is described in the opening chapters of Genesis. Out of the substances of this divine man, the universe was formed. Okay. Remember that. Out of the substances of this divine man, the universe was formed. Now, right here we have the tree of life going from Kether all the way down, and if you can see, we have Primordial, the zodiac, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, the Sun, Venus, all the way down to the Earth. Okay? So, but the zodiac is not the very top. The very top is Primordial, and that refers to the fiery heavens. If we take a look at the ladder of lights refers to Kether. This is by William G. Gray, who's done Kabbalah. The crown, the summit, Sia, world of expression, Primordial, nebula. So out of the nebula, this universe was formed, and that is the primordial Adam. And so it formed the zodiac in the areas of the southern sky, which is like it's described in the Bible. It created the Pleiades, it created Orion and the constellations of the southern sky as it is described, and that is the first motion. And then we have that it extends all the way down to Saturn. And this is what we see when we move down the tree of life, when we move from Kether down to the fixed stars, which is also the zodiac. Then we go down to Saturn, and then Jupiter, then Mars, the Sun, and so forth, all the way down to Earth. But all is formed within inside this one being, which is the primordial Adam, because he connects to all of these things. So these are all pieces of him. Just like the fingers on your hand are pieces of you, these different areas and places are pieces of the primordial or prototypic atom that we see right here, which represents the nebula. So, we take a look at this, and what I've got here is I've got an audio clip. I want to play some for you real quick. And this audio clip, I've clipped together some things from the vision of Hermes, from the Egyptian afterlife, from Kabbalah, and from astrotheology, which you will hear here towards the end. And the purpose of doing this is to give you the similitudes of what's actually going on, showing you the similar concepts that are being described in each one of these. This is not a zeitgeist. This is way before zeitgeist. You can look this stuff up if you want to in the ancient texts. But what you'll see here is this primordial Adam that is being spoken of is the same as some other names, which we'll hear about. So let me go ahead and play this for you.
This is the mysterious, primordial, archetypal, universal man. This is the total man. This mysterious great man of the Zohar, who stands with his head in the heavens, one foot upon the earth and the other upon the oceans. This is the great macrocosmic man.
Now, when he says the great macrocosmic man, something people need to realize is we always hear about the term God is in you and stuff like this, and this is true. But the ancients understood that there is a macrocosm version of us as well as our microcosm. And the primordial Adam is built like a hologram, and we are all fragments of that hologram.
Underlying the countless people, objects, and phenomena we see in the world, there's only two things that exist. An unchanging creative law called Boré, creator, giving force, and two, a single creature the law built that contains the entire cosmos and everything in it, called Adam, the desire to receive, or the collective soul. They're not really two things, but they're two sides of the same force. Adam means resemblance, and depending on the quality of connection between the Creator and Adam, how different or alike they are, that's what projects everything we feel as either the physical things surrounding us or our private inner life. The creation didn't end with the appearance of the creature. It wasn't even the starting point. The creation that we see happened when, in order to give the creature independence, the giving force shattered the original desire to receive into billions of desires, each with a dormant spark inside of it that's still connected to the others. There is only one creature, and it's built like a hologram, with each isolated lonely me part containing within it every other me plus the whole. No matter how it looks on the outside, humanity is one creature, and it's evolving as a whole. Your me isn't just you. It just thinks it is.
So when he describes the macrocosmic man, think of us as the pieces of that hologram. So we are just smaller versions of the macrocosmic man. And he's speaking of the macrocosmic man right now. And this also ties into astrotheology.
And this man, in the Hermetic doctrine, is the one and only begotten Son of the Father. The man which is the son of the mind, the son of reason. This man, therefore, is that being, made and fashioned in the image of the reason of God. Efforts have been made to parallel this man with the Christ of Christianity as the only begotten.
And here he's called the Christ of Christianity, and then once again called the only begotten, and then also,
strangely, as the celestial Adam.
So it's called Christ, it's called the celestial Adam, and the only begotten.
And also, strangely, as the celestial Adam. Horus, among his titles,
and this is Horus. This is from the Egyptian afterlife, and listen to his titles.
Horus, among his titles, includes the only begotten of Osiris.
There it is again, the only begotten of Osiris. So you can see the similar things that are being talked about right here.
Also, another title is the firstborn of eternity.
The firstborn of eternity. Now let me point to something for you real quick. Right here, Colossians 1:15. Christ is the visible image of the invisible God. In this case, it would be whichever one you want to call, the Osiris in the Egyptian afterlife. He existed before anything was created and is supreme over all creation. He is the visible image. He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. So if we go back here.
Also another title is the firstborn of eternity.
The firstborn over all creation and the firstborn of eternity. And we're still talking about Horus here.
Another title of him is He Who Shall Bear Witness. Another title of him is the Redeemer. Still another, the Intercessor. He is also called the Bridge and the Door. And it is said of him that he guards the house of his Father.
Now this is when we talk about the astrotheology part. The winter solstice where the sun dies. And then I'm going to back that up with some text I found on usbible.com.
And here at the winter solstice, the great sun god dies. He is betrayed. He is carried to the great place of the skull, which is called Golgotha.
He's carried to the great place of the skull called Golgotha, the great place of the skull.
And here upon Calvarius, which is a naked skull, the cross presumably was erected.
So that's where the crucifixion occurred, was in the skull.
And here the sun god is crucified over the body and remains of Adam, the primordial being.
So the crucifixion happened over Adam, the primordial being. So the Son moved and was crucified over Adam, the primordial being, in the place of the skull. And that is exactly the way Adam presents itself in the cosmos, is just like a large skull where the crucifixion happens, where I've showed you before. When we saw this in the creation of Adam, for example, right here, showing that he's painted a brain. The crucifixion happens right here, and we see that right here is the primordial Adam, and this is the primordial being Adam. So when the Sun moves across Orion, it's actually being crucified right here. This is where the cross is erected, because this is the area of the pineal gland where the crucifixion occurs inside the skull. So let's listen to that part one more time.
And here the sun god is crucified over the body and remains of Adam, the primordial being. This is the mysterious, primordial, archetypal, universal man. Efforts have been made to parallel this man with the Christ of Christianity as the only begotten, and also, strangely, as the celestial Adam.
Okay, the celestial Adam, the primordial being, the place of crucifixion, the place of the skull, the place of the pineal gland, the place of prima mobile, the crown, the fiery heavens, which is the nebula that we see right here, which is being described in both things of Kabbalah. The archetypal, heavenly Adam, the celestial Adam, which is also referred to as Christ. And this is the reason why we keep seeing IHS in Christ located in the Orion Nebula in all these cathedrals. Now, the second part of this is going to show you how this is connected to the temple architecture itself. But I don't want to make that in this video. I don't want to make it too long. Last thing I wanted to show you here is from U.S. Bible, where it says this: Spirit equals Orion. And it says there is an astronomical aspect of the Son of Man. And I'm not going to read all of this because I've read this to you before. But it says the Son of Man represents the constellation of Orion. The clouds symbolize the Milky Way coming with the clouds, because he's coming with the clouds. But it says here, to summarize, they are saying Jesus' ministry takes place within one solar year, with the sun descends to its lowest point during the winter solstice. The sun, aka Jesus died. The sun is reborn on the first day when when daylight hours start to increase on December 25th. At the same time, on December 25th, the Son of Man, represented by Orion, starts to rise above the horizon. This is the time when Jesus' spirit is said to ascend into heaven. Orion has three closely aligned stars, which the Gospels called the three wise men. So as you can see, the sun is tied to Orion. And the crucifixion happened over the primordial Adam, which is actually going on right here. So I wanted to show you the astrotheology aspect of this. And then I also wanted to show you one more thing, because it's saying the Son is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. And if you remember, I described for you also in the tree of the Sephiroth that it says, out of the substances of this divine man the universe was formed. But if we go one more over in Colossians, it says, for in him all things were created, things in heaven and earth, visible and invisible. It's describing the Christ, because 1:15 was describing Christ. And then if we take a look at 1:18, he is the head of the body, the church. He is the beginning, the firstborn among the dead. So he is the head of the body. And this is going to come into play when we take a look at the temple architecture and why we see what we do, where we do inside these cathedrals. And that's where this is going to come in play, because we're going to take a look at the Jesuit church. We're going to see why we see this right here when we first come in. And then when we move our way up to the head of the church, what are we going to see up here? And I'm going to show you why all this makes sense and how it relates to the macrocosm and the microcosm inside your bodies. So you guys take care, and I'll talk to you soon.